So, I mean, like, were there times where you'd make a traffic stop and be like, holy shit, like you were surprised at what was going on?
I'll give you a direct example. It plays into, and this is an everyday occurrence. Something, I don't know if you remember it or not, but probably 2008, no, it was probably 2017. Made headline news. There was a truck tractor semi-trailer that had stopped at like a Walmart. I think it was a Walmart parking lot in San Antonio. There was like 20 migrants that died, and in the back because it was just too hot, right? There was a few that had managed to get the doors open and escape. That driver was probably waiting for the next leg of that criminal enterprise to take over. I'm not sure. So I'm reading the headlines, right? And that's a big part from where the commercial motor vehicle traffic where I was at was very high. So I took note to that, right? And they had a picture of the truck in the news, and I looked at it and it keyed off to me. And I'm like, wow, that looks like very familiar. And I recollected a particular moment, and I thought, no way. Like, what are the chances, right? I don't know where that truck originated from. Now, that truck, though, had some particular criteria that sticks out in particular for like an interdiction value. So I saw that and I took note of it, but it was not driving. At the time, it was legally parked at a truck stop. And so normally, maybe if the truck was driving, it had some clues, right? And I would try to investigate a bit further, right? And if there's a violation there, or if he breaks a traffic law, then I can initiate a traffic stop, and I've got an investigation going on at that point, right? And so I see this truck and I pass it by. I mean, there's nothing. It's legally parked. Nothing I can do. It just keyed off, And they showed a picture of that truck, and that was the truck. And I'm like, no way. And I even was like, no way, couldn't be. Next day, they released a booking photo of the driver, and I remember distinctly looking up at the cab of that truck as I drove by it, and I saw the driver, and that was him. And so just kind of makes me think, shit. I mean, I hate that about how the world works, because I wish I could have stopped that truck and potentially saved a whole bunch of lives.
Yeah,
I had that happen. I'll give you another story about one of those. We did actually were able to stop and interdict and potentially save some people. We had a particular stop where it was a truck tractor semi-trailer, and long story short, multiple violations on the vehicle, many clues and indicators of that gave us the impression that he may be concealing something, some sort of contraband. That then kind of gives us the ability to, once we are able to kind of see all those clues, right, that reasonable suspicion, right, that gives us a little bit more grounds to just simply ask, hey, can we have consent to search this vehicle? And a lot of people do it, and that's fine. That's totally, they could say no, and we would say, okay. But he did. He gave us consent. And so we popped the back hatches of the trailer, and it is professionally palletized U-Haul blankets. Like it's business, right? Like he's moving freight. Looks completely legit. From the bottom, though, to the top, you couldn't see anything. It was packed in there so perfectly and tight and professionally looking, you couldn't see anything past beyond a couple inches. One of the troopers I was with, though, was exceptionally good at all this, and he was like, there's something in here. Like all of these things, all of these clues and indicators, this is not right. And so we have the ability to x-ray truckloads at, we have that capability, some of these locations down there. So we actually put the truck through an x-ray, and there was like 9 Guatemalans stuck in the back in very tight, close confinement. And so we immediately arrested the driver, put him in custody, and we open up the back hatches, and we start frantically trying to pallet jack all of these pallets to get to these people, because we just see them on x-ray.
Mm-hmm. You don't even know if they're
and
alive.
they are, even some of them, they're floating above the floor. So they're like wedged
Jesus.
up into there, and we don't know if they're dead or alive or anything, right? So we take pallet jack, and we're trying to get all this out of the way, and there they are. We end up seeing them, and we get them off, and of course they're, how they got in that position. Was that voluntary? Did they want to do that? We don't know. It's very hard to tell that at that moment. And so that's another challenge of the border is, were they trafficked? That may have been voluntary.
For you guys at that point, do you turn them over to Border Patrol?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So turn them
And they
over to
just get
Border Patrol.
processed like any other situation that presents itself that way. Was it, in terms of the drugs and cash, is there a biggest haul that you personally came across?
Yeah, absolutely. A friend of mine got $20 million worth of fentanyl.
Holy shit.
Here in Texas.
Man.
I saw multi-million-dollar drug loads frequently.
Yeah.
In concealment locations in vehicles that you would just never imagine. You could be like,
yeah,
the creativity and ingenuity is unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's very, very hard to find this stuff. But yeah, I saw multi-million-dollar cocaine loads, multi-million-dollar liquid meth loads, and multi-million-dollar cash stash loads, and also like stash houses.
Wow.
where they're holding and stashing people.
Yeah.
Saw that as well.
For the, I'm assuming the drugs get destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys do with the cash?
Great question.
I mean, does it go into into
well,
DPS?
well, I think first and foremost, it's evidence. So depending on what happens with the case, there's a period of time where it has to be held. And I know some like local police departments and like even constables' offices, they do have a legal way of being able to convert that money and use it. I have never seen that in DPS. So I don't know.
Huh. I mean, it seems like there's a significant amount of, we'll call it working capital, that's
Right.
that's seized by
Yeah.
law enforcement. I'm curious as what the fuck they do with it. Man, that's fascinating shit. All right, so the year that you spent down there, it's kind of all-encompassing, and you learn a ton. You're paying your dues and putting your time in. You go back up to the Austin area and do the more traditional highway
Right.
stuff. Any crazy stories from your time there? Like high-speed chases, fucking, like what was that like?
Absolutely, yeah. And one thing that was surprising to me was a lot of what we saw down there is present here.
Yeah.
And a lot of it doesn't get covered, But I mean, the cartel's influence is beyond the border.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. It's well beyond the border.
Sure.
And one thing that I saw in particular that was crazy, that's consistent with down there and further in, is a majority of the people that are doing this stuff. You see the videos of like these crazy police chases, and I've been in one. I'll describe one down there. I could not believe what had happened. But a trooper, for example, saw a good vehicle that had interdiction value. Again, the troopers down south are very good at being able to spot things like that. So you go up and you get close to it, and you start driving next to it, and you're continuing to investigate. In another vehicle that he was not even paying attention to it, came in and cut him off and started trying to run him off the road.
The trooper?
The trooper. This is a uniformed black and white highway patrol car trying to run him off the road. And so that, of course, he does his mission, and he does create a gap, and that initial vehicle does, in fact, get away, unfortunately. We're just up the road, but we're hearing it on the radio, so we flip around and head south to link up with him as fast as possible, because now his attention is going to be on that vehicle. Now we want to arrest them. So, but they're running. So, and I'm talking very dangerous speeds, right? Fortunately, we have a high degree of training in driving and all that, and you through your experience down there, you just get more and more experience with that. So,
are those schools in-house, or do they send? Mm-hmm. They send it's all in-house training?
All in-house, and so we're chasing after them, and this goes from outside the city limits, out in rural areas of the highway, all the way in town. They stop, they bail, they go out on foot. Now we're in a foot pursuit, and we end up getting them, and they're kids. They're 14 years old.
Holy shit.
And they're stone cold. Like, can you imagine a regular average 14-year-old who's just committed a major crime, right? That type of crime, as a matter of fact, was good enough to get them a deadly conduct charge, which is, just shy of like manslaughter and murder. And they could care less. They could care less. We put them in custody, took them to juvie.
American citizens or
no? Well, yeah. They were American citizens.
Wow.
But that became apparent to me after that a lot of the crime that's occurring down there. So these cartels are influencing these young kids, and they are the ones that are conducting it. And then I kind of found a gap of criminals. I didn't see very many like 22 to 32-year-olds.
They're either super young or super old.
Yeah, because they have a few years where they're being a crook, and they get it rolled up eventually. They go to jail for 10 years, and they're off the street.
Wow.
Next thing you know, you're seeing guys in their mid to late 40s. But there was always kind of that gap, and the majority of the people doing that crime was kids.
Yeah.
And young kids, teenagers.
Wow. All your time on the street as a DPS guy, did you ever have to go hands-on with somebody where like they're legit fighting you back?
Yeah, in the brush. Like, some of these, we have an ability to gain awareness if, they're crossing certain areas. So, we would team up with Border Patrol, chase after them, and they resist, absolutely. Whenever you put hands on them and you're trying to effect an arrest, they're kind of swinging at you, and they're trying to get away. They're kicking at you. Foot pursuit, another pursuit that went from a vehicle to foot, that kind of ended. We spiked him. Car wrecks out. He's got migrants in the back, so illegals in the back, and he's like their smuggler. And he runs on foot and tries to blend into a neighborhood. We end up getting him. I end up putting him in custody. He ends up trying to fight me. Luckily, he's my size, no big deal. But yeah, I mean that's a common occurrence. Now I've just seen stuff recently. They're coming across with weapons and ARs, and they'll do whatever it takes. Yeah. They'll do whatever it takes to get away, because it's money to them or it's their freedom, right? They're from Salvador or Honduras or whatever, and they're just doing whatever it takes to get into this promise that they've been promised, the greatness of America, and then the smugglers will do everything they can to make them and to get them across, because that's their livelihood.
Yeah,
it's a terrible cycle.
Yeah. Training wise for you guys, academy and follow on, as far as combatives, how significant is it? Like, do you spend a lot of time, and is it catch wrestling, jiu-jitsu, prisoner handling? I mean, what kind of stuff are you guys working on? Yeah,
kind of a bit of everything nowadays. And there is means of which that police officers can sustain those skill sets. So we do like an open mat, type of deal, where if you got time off, just hit the gym. There's an open mat area, and there's a lot of guys that do BJJ and help teach other people, and it's just completely informal.
Yeah.
But in the academy, of course, we get combatives, arrest and control tactics, where you're learning how to put somebody in custody, and they start fighting you and resisting you, and you gotta hold your own. And they you get tested. You certainly do get tested in the academy, and so you're using the techniques that they taught you, the takedowns, very kind of straightforward stuff. Back in the day, as a matter of fact, they used to focus more on boxing. Before a lot of the border stuff had happened. So there's still an element of that, striking. And that's on an everyday basis too. I mean, that's a part of where they integrate that in with PT. So I like that. I thought that was good, kind of integrating that to where you're getting into that situation, but with your heart rate elevated.
Yeah.
And same thing for the range. I've seen it in like follow-on training, where there's some follow-on training and marksmanship focused courses where they are incorporating that, which I think is absolutely necessary. You need to be able to handle yourself in that type of situation, with your heart rate jacked.